Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk with Sodhi. Not just another entrepreneurship show. But here we don't just talk about innovations, we also talk about the journey, the sacrifices, and the untold stories behind the headlines. Well, today we have with us Michael Fortinberry. He's a seasoned entrepreneur with a proven track record of success in both startups and large corporations. He's now the co-founder and chief operating officer of Protiv, a revolutionary platform that is changing the way compensation works in the construction industry. It's a groundbreaking solution that aligns the interests of employees and employers by directly linking compensation to productivity. In today's conversation, we'll be diving deep into Michael's experience and how Protiv is transforming traditional hourly compensation in construction. Michael, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hey, how are you, Karandeep? Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to talk to you as well. It's an honor to have you. It's going to be very exciting for our listeners to hear your journey so far. So, to kick things off, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your journey that led you and David to co-found Protiv?
Yeah, that's a big story. I'm an old guy. We started off doing this. We were just getting the wheel. We thought that was a big deal early in technology. We got Fire. That was a good one. So I've been doing technology a long time. But honestly, Protiv has been, really a labor of love because it's something we built for our own construction company. And when you build technology for yourself, you're really motivated to see it be successful. And then you realize when nobody else has done it, like, wow, this could help other people too. So our founding journey was one of solving our own problem and then realizing that a lot of other people had the same problem. So who knew? Now we had a software company too.
Right. I mean, that's interesting because I know that throughout your career, you've founded and co-founded several companies across different sectors, construction, real estate, property, tech. So what drives your interest in starting new ventures? And especially, how do you even identify opportunities in diverse industries?
Really two very interesting questions there. On the first side, I think you either have a DNA to kind of create from scratch. There's something about that 0 to 1 journey that is very unique. It's very special. You've kind of got to have a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a screw loose, to try and do that. But for whatever reason, I've always felt comfortable with that blank piece of paper and trying to figure out what we're going to go do. The other half of your question is different, which is how do you find what to go do? I don't think that's the hard part. I think there's plenty of places and things that where we can make things better, whether you're a product person or software or hardware, software, physical goods, service businesses, et cetera. I don't know. I think a lot of us have ideas. I've always found that to be the easy part. The hard part is executing on it.
I agree with you. It's much easier to find a problem which is very close to your experience or your sector that you're working in. But in terms of the initial challenges in developing and launching Protiv, what were the major ones? And were they any different from other sectors that you worked in?
I think this particular journey was slightly different because we weren't a software company at the beginning. We were a construction company. And so finding the right way to get code developed was a little different, going and finding a third-party groups, plural, to build tech was a thing. And sometimes just the DNA of the company, the internal company culture when you're running a construction company, different than when you're building a software company. So we had to separate those two things and kind of draw some lines internally because we just approached the day differently in those type of businesses, those type of spaces.
When was the time you realized that, okay, David, let's just make it into a technology company. Let's make it more fruitful for these employers and employees.
We had started building this tool internally. Originally, it was a spreadsheet and it turned into a Google sheet and a smart sheet and, small, like the Zoho platform for a while. All these kind of iterations of it as we grew. And somewhere along the way, we ended up with some software and a bigger platform. And it started having an impact on our business, on our financials. As we reached a point where we knew we were onto something. It had an impact for us. The real question is, well, would anybody else have the same value? So you start talking to people you know. In our case, it was other contractors. And we gave away the system for a while. It was barely an MVP, barely worked. I mean, we just kind of, because you had to productize it, right? It was one thing as an internal thing. It turned into a product that you can hand someone, which is different. And
Right.
so we handed this thing out for a while, and it turned out other people saw some benefit from it as well. And I think it was at that point we realized, okay, if we're going to do this, we're really going to have to separate it. We spun the company out, raised a little bit of money, and started really creating the more efficient product side to it to scale.
And since then, how long did it take you to come to a final decision of what you, I mean, because there are a lot of iterations to the product along the way. You pivot a bit, you understand and learn more what kind of features you want to add on to the product. How long do you think that journey kind of took you? Was it a couple of months, in a matter of months you realized, or was
So,
it, did it take you a few years?
so there was a point at which I remember we were sitting in a conference room with our whole system that we had built for ourselves. And we were trying to figure out, what do we delete out of this system to get it down to only the basic things it needs to be a product. And we were to take this out and take that out. Or what about this? And in the end, we came up with a system that was about a third the size of our overall platform. I will share with you now, the thing we have today is about 1% of what that original one was. We weren't even close to the level of cutting that needed to take place to get down to the thing. Because there was a lot of systems inside of our other system, but that we just didn't need to have in a product. They were superfluous, so they were unique to us, or other people did it better. So we just kind of honed in on the one thing that we did better than, in this case, unique, that nobody else did. That exercise probably took several months, and it just a realization that we needed a blank piece of paper and start writing code again from scratch. We couldn't cut enough out of our old system to ever get down to something thin enough. So we started over. We had to throw a lot of money away that we had spent, and it's kind of a do-over. That was when you're staring at, hundreds of thousands of dollars in development, realizing you're putting it in the trash cans, that's a lot to absorb emotionally. But we realized that it's the only way we're ever going to get there is start over. And so we started over. That would have been like November of 2021. Even as of this morning, David said something along the lines of, I think I figured out what the key is going to be. And it's just like, we're still learning every day what this is the part, this is the thing. Part of that is our journey towards product market fit isn't complete yet. We do know what it looks like, what it will look like when we get there. We're headed towards it, but we constantly find new approaches. I don't know if that ever really ends. It
Right.
probably shouldn't ever end.
Yeah, I mean, the constant growth should be there, but I'm sure it must be very painful to see that all that you built and you were envisioning had to go all out the window, and now to work on a new product or start from scratch. Not even new product, but a much shed down version of it. What I take from it is that it's much tougher to understand what the market needs as an MVP to have or understand a product market fit, in at least in initial phases, or just by taking constant feedback from the market, from the consumers.
Well, I think that our understanding of what even product market fit was mistaken early on. And I've done this before. And so you would think I was kind of figured out. I think partly because we didn't understand the scope of the market. We saw it through our lens. So we saw the world through the lens that even using it as our own customer, we still only saw the world somewhat through that lens. And as you put it in front of other people, you realize other people use tools in different ways, they have different problems, they have different metrics, the different ways they operate that would be unique. In our space, we did large scale multifamily renovation. Our projects ran 3 or 4 days to 3 or 4 weeks on average, handful of people working on it. That was a typical window for us. If you go and sell I have the same problem as a landscaper, and I'm going to go sell them a solution. They have hourly workers, they have budgets, but they do 20 projects in one day that start and end in one day. They're mowing lawns all day. The very different way that they look at creation of a job, close out of that job, quality control. How do I manage production and quality, incentivize those things? Then you flip the other side, you find a company that builds roads and they're going to spend 2 years with 35 people building a road through Saskatchewan. It's just a different view of the same problem. They have the same problem. We have the same
Right.
solution, but the way they interface with it's very different. So product market fit is a more elusive thing than what we really originally thought it was going to be.
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. I think it might vary from industry to industry, but also coming down for our listeners to understand in terms of teams and the people who are working to achieve this entire goal. I mean, you've led and managed teams across, various sizes across different companies. What's your approach to building and motivating your team or a high performing team, particularly in this startup environment?
So people throw out the term company culture a lot. I don't think a lot of people understand what is that. If you say, what is company culture? A lot of people will just stare blankly at you a bit. Think of your company culture as your personality. Are you easygoing? Are you strict? Do you put the work first or do you put your people first? I think it's really important for your whole team to understand, especially your mid-management group, what is our culture? Because if they understand the culture, then they can apply the cultural precepts to decision-making that they make when you're not standing there. What are they going to do when you're not there? How are they going to act? How are they going to problem solve? What choices are they going to make? How are they going to talk to their coworkers? How are they going to interface with customers? If you don't have your culture defined, you end up with a haphazard execution on sometimes very important things. Some companies might say, you know what, we're going to put our people first because we care deeply about our employees. And so if we have a product launch coming tomorrow, but Bob's daughter has a dance recital, we're going to make sure Bob gets to his daughter's dance recital because our people come first. You might alternatively say, you know what, we're so committed to our product that we're sacrificing going to our daughter's dance recital to get our product out. What's your culture? How do you guys view that? And how does your team approach that? Neither one of those is right or wrong per se. You can make strong arguments for both of those being a very big companies that operate in both of those spaces, but they're different. And I think it's important that you build a company culture that reflects the values that you have as the leadership team. And then you can, from that, get execution that's more consistent from your overall organization.
Right. But I do believe that one of those will have a different kind of motivation level in terms of, loyalty. I mean, if you put people before work, mostly when it's a dire situation where they need the support more than the company or the product needs the support right now, when they are the ones who's building it, I'm sure that might have a bit of an effect on the motivation for your team to be loyal to the company, keep believing in the same goal as you are. So that's just my take on it. But I completely agree with what you just said as well. It is the personality of the leadership. That's what, flows down into other levels of or hierarchy of management as well.
That's you're spot on. So Sodhi, if you think of it as I'm going to go in and I want to build something, I want to build this great team to do it. It doesn't matter whether you're starting a restaurant or whether you're building a big software company or whether you're running a retail shop or construction company or whatever. I want to create this company culture. You want to understand what is your company personality, but it's really important then to talk about that all the time. All the time. I mean, every meeting that you have, there should be it's almost like your meeting should be held up against the mirror of your company's culture and personality and the DNA of who you are. If you say, oh, we care about people deeply, but you never talk about people in your meetings, all you do is talk about numbers, what's really the DNA of your company? So recognizing that it needs to flow through the organization in the way you execute and meet and communicate, really very important.
Right. And now I'm going to go into another question, which is slightly related to this, because there's a lot of insecurity in the startup culture or in general in a lot of organizations that automation is going to lead to a lot of job losses, And I know in construction, it's much, much further down in the future. But do you envision technology to be used to empower construction workers rather than replace them?
Yeah, there's very interesting things happening around that. The construction space has always lagged a bit behind other industries in terms of technology adoption. It's not a secret there. But we're seeing the manifestations of tech and the benefits for the workers today. Good example, recently, I saw a set of goggles you could put on. You could stand at a construction site and do safety training. Looking at your construction site, what if this? What would you do here? Is this a problem? Yes or no? It was all VR to train you on safety and best practices. Really, really cool, right? And so it's helping, keep people safe, and we keep people safe, jobs going to finish on time more often. It's just a lot of benefits from the kind of companies we want to run when we care about our people, make sure they get home safely. There's technology being applied to sustainability in construction, which is really cool. How do we get the right material at the right place most efficiently all the time? It's a really, really big step forward as an industry. So I think there's opportunities across the board for technology to enhance things. We see digital twins, which is really innovative. Think about it. I build a building and I make a digital twin of it. So for later, I need to go figure out what's behind that wall. I can't remember what we put there, and the drawings are all over the place. Now, if I have a digital twin, I know what's behind that wall. It's a simplistic example of how it's used, but just think about the value of having a digital version. When you come later, you need to do something, verify something, remeasure something, test something. There's huge implications for that. I've seen robots walking job sites that measure everything all the time. A robot from Boston Dynamics can tell you how many linear feet of conduit were installed from the day before. It's walking around the job site and it knows what it saw yesterday. It knows what it saw today. So it knows yesterday there was 7,000 linear feet of conduit, and today there's 8,500 linear feet of conduit in. So your as-built data inside of your operating platforms is updated in real time with what's actually been done. Very cool stuff, right? Now, does that take a person out of the equation? Somewhat, but we don't have enough people in construction anyway. So we're 750,000 people short just in the United States.
That's a humongous number.
We have a demographic challenge. We have an aging workforce and not enough young people coming into construction and increasing demand. So we have a real challenge to meet the demand of construction on a global level.
I think this is where technology might come in handy in terms of, innovation. It might make it more efficient for the industry to maybe reduce that gap. If the gap is inevitably growing, then to reduce it is where it comes in handy, to kind of reduce the dependency on or minimizing your human error and making it more efficient. It's an inevitable need for everyone. Construction is never going to end.
Which is by 5 largest industries in the world. If you combine it with real estate, it's the largest industry in the world. It's colossal in its size and scope. We need 13,000 new buildings per day globally. Think about that. Every day we have to build 13,000 new buildings every day. That's on top of fixing everything we already have. 13,000 new buildings every day. It's just a gigantic space to work in. And pretty excited. But a lot of what we're talking about here is applicable across a lot of industries. So, we're excited about what the future holds. I actually saw a friend of mine has a company called PaintJet, which has built a painting robot, and they use it mostly for painting large warehouse type buildings, exterior painting. Basically, the robot is 8 times faster than a human, and it applies the paint perfectly to the manufacturer specifications every time. So I believe they're now starting to use it to paint ships. Well, can you imagine what it takes to take a paint roller and roll a paint on the side of a ship, right? So, or spray it. It's just very burdensome for a human being to do, very easy for a robot to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, construction is something that is a necessity for prop tech, that is a necessity for real estate. And I think that's where you kind of knitted everything together, and you do understand this industry so well that you could find a solution which I don't think a lot of companies were working or are working towards. So that's why I'm also very impressed with what you've been trying to achieve since we know each other. I think it's been a little more than a year,
Yeah.
and I've only seen you growing, because there is an absolute, only the path that you're paving is only towards growth, and not a lot of people are actually working towards it, and that gives you a great benefit in that space too.
Yeah. One of the things people ask sometimes is how does this happen now? Right. Sometimes we wonder, like, why didn't somebody think of this before? And which I think is an interesting journey for a lot of entrepreneurs is, why didn't this come up before? If this is a problem, why wouldn't somebody solved it before? And in our case, and I think a lot of listeners may have seen something like this within their world, the technology, the space itself, you may have thought of the problem, but the ability to solve it needed other things to be in place. In our case, we needed the platforms where budgets were managed. We needed software platforms where time was managed. So those 10 years ago, people didn't have their workers clock in and out on their phone. Now, it may seem like a simple thing, but when you get to your job site and you clock in on your phone, the trigger of that, knowing where you are, what you're working on, et cetera, allows me to link that back to a budget, which is also in a system. And now that I've got those pieces of data, I can do something with it, right? I can begin to interact on it. So I think a lot of opportunities come from accessing disparate pieces of information that didn't exist before, finding new ways to leverage them. We're starting our first beta project now with manufacturing, where we have unit-based targets instead of budget-based targets, where I want to produce X number of units per day within my assembly line. And so how do I incentivize the teams managing those incentive lines to hit their quality goals, their safety goals, their production goals on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, and incentivize them to do so tied back to the value of that increase to my company.
Right, more precise ROI that you can get out of it. As a founder, looking back, what advice would you give to your past self about navigating the challenges of starting a new venture in the tech space, or maybe just considering ProTip?
Make decisions quickly, move faster, be ready to go without a paycheck for a very long period of time. There's a discipline that's from that too. That's not just the money, some with the money, but just when we went 2 years without getting paid, for perspective, before we finally raised enough money and got enough growth to pay ourselves. Even now, we don't pay ourselves very much 2.5 years into this. And I would suggest but move fast, go fast. Like, speed is your friend, and you need to iterate quickly. You need to talk to a lot of customers. The more customer conversations you have, the better. And a lot of credit to David. David carries a lot of that in our organization as far as cycling back to our customers nonstop, getting feedback, getting more feedback. We noticed you're not using this. Why not? What can make it better? Do you think it'd be useful? Talk about your features. Would you pay for this? Would you pay for this? Get people to tell you they'll pay for something before they build it for them. If someone says, hey, I really wish your system would do X. If I build that, will you give me another $1? Is it worth another $1 to you? Oh, find out. Oh, not that important. Well, maybe you don't want to build that yet. So really can't emphasize that enough. To go quickly, talk to your customers, and be ready for the sacrifice, because it's no easy journey. The stats on success in this are so bad that anybody's got to be crazy to start a company. They want to try and think they're going to take it public or M&A or something. Only about 25% of venture capital funded companies ever have an exit. Think about that. That means after someone is giving you millions of dollars, do you ever have any kind of an exit? Only 25% of the time. It's really hard to pull this off. Really stupid hard. Like, it's crazy. You want to take a company public? Good luck. Really, the stats are better off saying, I think I'm going to go build my own moon rocket. And go walk around on a different planet. That's about the same level of complexity. So it's hard, but the journey is pretty cool. You get to build something new that nobody's seen before.
Right. first to reach a level of success is 1 or 2 out of 10 in the startup ecosystem, and then going public or
That's
having an exit is 1 out of 4. I think, yeah, definitely. I think it's a very challenging space to kind of venture into. So for our listeners who are budding entrepreneurs or early stage entrepreneurs, they can learn from it. They can do so much and apply it in their early stages to understand or keep their expectations in check or on track, in terms of getting paid. Maybe today is not a good day to get paid, or this year is not a good year to be paid. But
s- yeah.
let's just put the money back into the business. Let's see, maybe we get a way better return than what we missed out in the past 2 years. So I think there are a great couple of learnings. Yeah. Yeah.
One other piece of advice: if you're out there and you're starting your company and you're hiring your first group of people, you better make sure the first big group of people you hire that not one of them needs to be told how to do their job at any level. You need to hire people who already know how to do what you're hiring them to do and can tell you how to do what they're doing. Because if you have to direct them, it's just not the right hire in an early stage company. You need to you need to hire into your company culture. But I'm telling you, it is critical you hire people that already know what I'm going to go do. Like our customer success guy, he knows so much more about building a customer success team than we do. He just does it. Our first sales guy we brought in, he's already been a SaaS software sales guy. He already knows how to do this stuff. Head of marketing, she's been there, done it. Our new CTO guy, this guy runs circles around us. He's so good at what he does, right? So he opens our eyes when they speak. When all of them talk, it's like, wow, so glad we hired that person. Those are the only people you can hire when you're first starting. Anybody else is just you just can't. There's no scenario where having to teach is the right scenario in a startup company. You need people who already know.
I absolutely agree. Very insightful. Honestly, it's very insightful. Even for me, who's tried to start a tech startup way back in 2017 or 16 then. I mean, I wish, these were the learnings I would have had then, because I went on that journey alone. I went and tried to build
Right.
something alone, trying to do everything myself. And there was a partner I tried to get on board, but I needed a technology guy. I did not need a business guy. So, I mean, it was not very fruitful. It was just we were splitting the tasks that I could have done. I needed somebody to do the other KRAs, the other responsibilities.
You see a lot of founder teams that are one person operational, one person tech. I get why that happens. And I don't think that's not necessarily a bad structure. If you can pull that off, kudos, whatever, 2, 3 people break that up. I think it's important. And what David and I have is different. What I credit him, this is a little grayish, but he carries a lot more detail, whereas I am less so. I tend to go like all over the place, and David is really execute down the spreadsheet kind of thing. And I think that's an important piece. You can't have two people who kind of are haphazard and throw things against the wall and move without thinking. You also can't have two people that are so in the details that they never go. They never take some crazy step, right? And push the envelope and risk, right? You've got to have both a bit, I think. And so I think Dave and I have made a good team in that respect. Be ready to argue, be ready to debate, and circle back after you've had time to think about it, and know that you're on the right team is critical.
Yeah, definitely. It's been really, really interesting talking to you. Coming back to you, this is with my last question. This is very personal, like of your hobbies, and what I learned very recently is that you had a passion to captain private yachts as a hobby, and that's where you met your wife. And it's fun to know that, because we've had a very different kind of relationship in terms of profession, and this was something I was very excited to hear about and learn about. But given your hobbies, your personal life, and this whole high demanding startup culture, and it can be very significant an impact on your life, right? How do you manage your work life balance? And I think this is very important for a lot of founders who are like, okay, I'm gonna go all in. I will leave every friend, family member for a couple of years. I'll put in everything I've got. Is it necessary, or is there a balance that you can strike and try to maintain that?
Whatever part of that you're gonna pick, make sure it's sustainable.
Right.
So I found that we have a sustainable process. My wife and I communicate well. Now we're fortunate. We actually like being around each other. So she comes and helps with a lot of what I do. A lot of your team has met my wife because she comes to events, over there with the Kiwi Tech team, and they've met her and it's wonderful. And I help her with her business. So we work with each other a lot. And if you come to a trade show and see us, my wife is probably in the trade show booth with us and talking to customers. She knows our story. So what we've done that works for us is we just do everything together. She knows I'm on this podcast today with you because I told her I was going to be doing it. She was excited for it. And so if I'm working till 8 o'clock at night in the office, she knows right where I'm sitting. She is a member here at our little workspace. So she comes up and works up here as well sometimes. And so we've just weaved our life together in a way that it doesn't feel like we're separated. And I think that has worked for us. I've certainly met a lot of people who sacrificed relationships, et cetera, to the altar of building a business. I don't know that that's a requirement. In fact, I would challenge to say it's not, you don't have to fall into that trap, but you do need to go into understanding the hours that are required. I am usually here. I usually see the lights come on, and there's probably 30 companies in this space we're in. And I'm usually the one that turns the lights on in the morning, and I frequently see the lights go off at night. So with 30 different companies all doing their own things around this kind of co-working space here, that's kind of the price of fame. So don't sugarcoat that. It is a lot of work, but there's a upside to it. And if you enjoy the journey, you better enjoy the process.
That's amazing, honestly. Oh, Michael, honestly, thank you so much for your time. This has been really great a conversation, personally. And in general, I think there's so many insights and so many things that you spoke about that a lot of young entrepreneurs can take from and learn and implement in their own journeys. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thanks a lot for your time today.
So I hope you'll get out to visit us here soon, and really appreciate you having me on here today.
Of course. Thank you. And thanks a lot. And yeah, good luck with your journey with ProTiv. And I really wish to connect with you soon.
Thank you.
And now for our listeners, if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking ways to improve your construction business and empower your employees, then ProTiv is definitely worth checking out. So head over to that website. It's at www.protiv.com. It's PROTIV. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening in. And until next time, keep innovating, stay curious, and keep talking tech. Thanks a lot.